Hi, this is Trish McMillan at my tiny house on Pibble Hill, and today we are going to talk about how to safely break up a dog fight. So, most dogs play really well. Most dogs will make faces and show teeth and they can look kind of scary when they're playing, and maybe that can be a future webinar is what's good play and what's not. But when it does go wrong and it turns into a fight, it's really important for everybody to have training in how to break it up without any damage to us or to the animals. So if a fight happens, the first thing to look at is how many dogs do you have, how many handlers. Luckily at Instinct we're going to have people around. It's probably not going to be just you. So if everybody is trained in how to use the fight tools, if you know where the emergency kit is, it's easiest if you have one person per dog in the fight. So if there's two people and two dogs fighting, you should be able to break it up fairly safely with the correct tools. So if there's more dogs than there are people, you're going to concentrate on the aggressor. Admittedly, sometimes there's more than one aggressor, but often it's one dog clearly that is biting the other one and the other one's trying to get away. So if we're going to concentrate on the aggressor. So there's two basic types of fights. There's your kind of slash and dash fights where they bite and release one another, and then there's your gripping fight where they hold and sometimes shake. And how you're going to approach these fights depends on what type of fight it is. So look at whether the dog is grabbing and releasing or holding, and that will inform what you do next. So I'm going to go through the hands-off ways to break up a fight before I go through the hands-on ways. It is always going to be safer to use the hands-off ways, and I advise you to use those first if humanly possible, because that's going to be safer for you, and it's always better for the dog if we don't allow them to get any extra bites or damage on our watch. So I'll go through, so kind of make a plan, have the tools on hand, know where they are. So here are our hands-off techniques. When I'm introducing two dogs, or if one of them might be a little bit tricky, I will leave a leash dangling on one or both dogs. Just clip to a back attach harness or clip to a collar, just a plain 6-foot, not too heavy leash. I like the 5/8 width. And if it's just a slash and dash fight and nobody's actually gripping, all you may need to do is two people pick up the leashes and walk in opposite directions. I'll show you how to use water, noisemakers, sprays, and then brake sticks. Hopefully you won't need to know how to use a brake stick, but better to know how to do it and not need it than need to know how to do it and not have that knowledge. So the things that we naturally do when we see two dogs fighting are pretty much all the wrong things to do, and I have done pretty much all of these in the past. So learn from my mistakes. Don't get yourself bitten. The first fight that I saw at a dog daycare, it was a slash and dash kind of fight, and of course you hear growling and it's scary, and I thought I was grabbing the instigator, and right as I was reaching for his collar, the other dog came in, and he was meaning just to snap beside that dog's face, but he got me right in the finger, laid it open down to the bone. I had to go into the doctor. It was very embarrassing, especially since it was my middle finger and I had to go around with that bandaged for a little while it healed. You don't want to put any appendages in there. You don't want to hit, kick, or punch a dog. Adding pain to any kind of fight, especially a gripping fight, will make it worse. And if it's a slash and dash fight, you may end up doing what I did and just stick your hand or your foot right where the dog was going to bite. A lot of dog fights are ritualized, so they're not meaning to do damage. They're snapping and not biting very hard. They're trying to just make a point. If it is a gripping fight, you really don't want to put your hands anywhere near the mouth. It's our instinct to try to pry a mouth open, but let me tell you, dogs' mouths are really sharp and they're stronger than we are. When we're breaking up a fight, you don't want to put your body in between the dogs. I'll show you how to approach from the back. And large dog, small dog fights are one of the scariest ones because you don't have time often to go and get your tools and come back, which you do when the dogs are evenly matched. If a dog is aggressing towards a small dog, whether you've got it out for a walk or a dog busts out of a kennel and you've got a small dog, just be aware that if you pick up a little dog and you dangle it, you can cause a lot more damage by a dog grabbing and falling to the ground. Gravity can do a lot of damage with that. So if you do need to pick up a small dog, you are going to want to get that dog through a door, I used to have a 7-pound toy poodle, and he went down my shirt, down my coat a few times when off-leash dog was charging, because you don't want to have them dangling in plain sight. That can make things worse. That doesn't mean don't defend your small dog, but just do it correctly and turn around and disappear that dog, or get it through a door, in a crate, over a fence, whatever it takes. So what I want you to hear in your head when you see an evenly matched dog fight, where they're both about the same size, I want you to hear me saying, "You have time." I have a pit bull from a dog fighting case, and his old owner used to hold professional dog fights with dogs who were trained and conditioned and genetically engineered to grab and shake and do a lot of damage. You know how long those fights would last? They could go for an hour, 2 hours. They can go a really long time. So you have time, and it is often going to take less time to run and get the right tool and come back than it would be to wrestle the dogs for a while and then go get the tool. And we're going to definitely have kits around all instinct locations and make sure everybody knows where they are and knows how to use all the kits. The exceptions to the "you have time" rule, as I said, were large dog, small dog, or if the airway or blood flow is blocked, you don't have as much time. You may still be better off getting your tools than trying to do things on your own and then having to get the tools anyways. But we're going to show you how to do that safely. So sometimes when there's an argument, it's the easiest thing is to let the dogs handle it. So much of dog aggression, much of dog communication is very ritualized. And though at one point we were the creatures in the forest that the lions and tigers and bears were trying to eat, so we're pretty hardwired to see teeth and hear growling and get really scared or upset. But dogs, this is their language. So sometimes they will just make noise. There will be just spit, if anything, or there will be no connection. And this one I'm going to show you, the dog doesn't actually connect, but she absolutely does aggress towards the other dog, and she makes her point in a way that is hard for us as non-dogs to do it.
She just run up in anybody's face, you know?
She's a school teacher. She's
What's
definitely
wrong with
a
the
teacher.
green collar?
Yeah, she's a mama dog, right?
Oh yeah.
You want this one now?
He understood that.
Appropriate? Inappropriate? What do you guys think?
So yeah, that was totally appropriate. He went up and put his paw on her. She froze and said, "Please don't." And he said, "How about now?" And so she escalated, said, "Really not?" And he got the point. The second dog was a little more savvy and saw her sort of freeze and said, "You know what? Not today. I'm going to leave you alone." So sometimes it's appropriate to let the dogs communicate. In a board and train situation and a boarding situation, we're probably going to jump in a little bit earlier just because these aren't our dogs. The videos I'm showing you are shelter dogs, and they are learning to play. So these are from Dogs Playing for Life, and Amy and her team let the dogs talk a little bit more than we can. These are not our dogs, so we are probably going to step in a little bit earlier. So water can be surprisingly effective. There's a lot of places to get water in your average kennel situation. You might have hoses, you might have a drinking water bottle, you might have a bowl of water in the kennel, a bowl of water out at the in the play yards. It's surprising how many dogs really think they're going to die if they get wet, particularly the smooth-haired, blocky-headed kinds. Your retrievers may just think, "Oh, yay, water." But watch this dog fight get broken up just with a little squirt bottle.
Oh! Did you see that? Yeah, get that up, girl! Contact. She's just talking here. Hot.
So the nice thing about water is that you can just affect one dog. So you can see she aimed it just at the dog who was biting. Nobody else got wet. She added in the cue to let the dog know that something was going to happen if they kept doing what they were doing. They do make water pressured fire extinguishers, which might not be a bad thing to have around. You can use a regular fire extinguisher to break up a dog fight as well, but try these other tools first. If that's all you've got around, that's all you've got around. But the water pressurized fire extinguishers put out a much stronger jet of water, as do a lot of the hoses that we'll have around kennels. I do have a friend who broke up a fight with the water bottle, though. You can dump it on the dog's head, or if it's a gripping fight, you can dump it into their mouth and make it harder for them to breathe, and often they'll let go. But so your noisemakers are going to flatten every dog around. So these are a much higher level fight breaker-upper, but if you've got 5 dogs and they are all fighting at the same time, sometimes the air horn will just split everybody up. And I would advise all locations to have an air horn in the yard with the dogs, and that can also act as a call for help. If you're out in the yard with these dogs and they start fighting and you need backup, if it's just you out there, or if you don't have enough people for the number of dogs, if we can train people that when you hear the air horn, that's a big deal. If you know how to break up a fight, go on out. Other things you might have, the pet corrector is a compressed air noisemaker. It's really loud. A lot of dogs don't like it. The occasional dog will come around and redirect on these noisemakers, though, so don't use it right beside their face. Your shake cans are usually the last things to walk off in a play yard. Nobody seems to want to take them and leave them other places, so a can with a few pennies in it will stop some fights. So we will have all of these in the fight kits. If you're going to use your voice, try not to use high-pitched noises. I'm not sure people have a lot of control over the noises that come out of them when they're really scared or worried. But if you can, try to keep the pitch of your voice a little lower. You can try an along with the corrector. And I would advise you, if you do have to use water or a shake can, to say so that the dogs eventually will just listen to and sometimes the firm voice works. So this one I'm going to show you. I think her squirt bottle malfunctions, and it's also raining, so you can see the squirt bottle would be less effective, and the handler just uses a verbal interrupter, and you will see that the dogs stop arguing, and it does kind of squash everybody in the yard. Some dogs care about this, some dogs don't.
Oh, he's fun. They're like kids.
Yeah.
There's going to be some escalating arousal here. Watch the black dog. See him hackles up on his back.
He's getting a little hot.
Yeah, he is.
Hey! Good boy. Good.
Good.
That's not.
So you can see that any kind of noise interrupter is going to startle every dog in the yard, though everybody else was also a little backed off. But they were already wet. They're running around in the rain, so that I don't think a spray bottle was working in that video. So the shake can, put a couple pennies, some pebbles in it. You can also use a plastic bottle with a few pebbles in it. It's a little softer sound. Any beverage that you have finished, you can put a few pebbles in the receptacle. With the shake cans, you might put some duct tape over the top. And again, this is just a fight tool. This is not something you're going to go around shaking just for fun. So you can tell this little pitty's probably got an issue since they opted to use a muzzle with him. And in this video, Cody's using a Gatorade bottle with a few pebbles in it. It's a little softer sound, so it's not quite as scary for all the rest of the dogs, too.
Can. Nice. Perfect. Ooh, and I got that. Perfect.
So here's another shake can being used. You can see it squashes everybody, though.
There you go. That a girl.
So although it was the black dog who was causing trouble, you can see that the victim dog is also worried about that. So I like to use the water first, and if the fight continues, we may go to a noise interrupter. So here's the pet corrector. It's one thing with all of the aerosol fight tools is, especially if you're keeping them outside in the weather, the aerosol will stop working. So I'd advise having a checklist where somebody gets to go out and test all of them way far away from all the dogs every couple of months and make sure that there's still fluid in them and that they still make noise. So here's a fight being broken up with the pet corrector. There's a bit of wind noise in this one, but you'll see when the pet corrector is used. And in this video, I just love how calm the handlers are. I want you to channel how calm these guys are, because, you know, gathering in and amping up the energy and that can make the fights worse, or make the potential fight explode if we sort of come in like you're watching a boxing match and get really close to them. So the little brown pitty is going to come around and do a full-on grab and shake. This is a serious bite, and you can see how they break it up without putting their hands in it. Jump that dog.
Alright, it's on. It's on, you
Water's
guys.
not working.
Nicely done.
The water didn't work, but that little hiss broke it right up, and nobody had to put their hands in. Sometimes blocking the view will work. Sometimes if all you have around is some bedding, a blanket, your jacket. I'll show you what a pig board looks like. We might want to keep those in the play yard as well. But just blocking the dog's view, making it dark, can separate them long enough that you can grab a pair of hind legs and move them apart. So your goal is to get a door in between these dogs, whether it's a kennel door or a play yard door, but get something physically between the dogs. You might have chairs around, you might have a trash can, and Allie's holding a pig board right there. So that's a nice lightweight board that you can sort of bring in from the back and block their view. So citronella spray, it's not my favorite thing because it makes the dog smell like lemon for several days afterwards. Of course, your instinct, you can give the dog a bath. It's not like the shelter dogs who are stuck. We don't bathe them as often. Sometimes I'll spray just in front of the nose. This is more a tool that I might use if I'm walking a dog in an area where there might be a loose dog. I will keep this, it comes with a little belt clip. So if a dog's charging me, I might spray it sort of in front of the dog in a circle or in a line. But if they're grabbing and holding, or even a slash and dash, if you can get some of that really sour, bad tasting lemon in their mouth, it'll make a lot of dogs release it. If the dog's really determined, it's not going to work. And some people like to carry mace for their own personal protection, and that will make everybody in the area blind. So if you have that, it's not for use with dogs. But the spray shield can be pretty effective. The one thing to remember with the spray shield is it's got a little safety on it. So if everybody can take one can out into the yard and just practice shake it and spray it and try to hit a target with it. It goes quite far. It's got, I don't know, maybe 10 sprays in it. But depending on how long you spray it, and it will keep spraying as long as you've got that button down. But you've got to remember to take the safety off. It's got to be off and then spray. I'm not going to spray myself in the eyes. So the air horn, again, this is if you've got to squash everybody in the yard, if you're trying to call for help, this is your tool. It's really loud. These little marine air horns will make your ears ring after you've heard it. So you can imagine the dogs with their much more sensitive hearing, how much harder it is on their ears.
Okay, here comes Rowdy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Kurt, we're gonna take that one out.
Now everybody will know that this is his yard. Wait.
Ooh, hold on.
Until he goes to teeth, do not step in.
Okay, you'll probably set them off on each other.
Take a step back, man.
Nice. You guys back up from over there, please. He's trying to establish himself, and so far he's being very fair. Hold on.
Wait. No mouth.
No mouth, right. There you go.
And you can see how having the leashes on is helpful, because Cody just stepped on the leash. And you can see all the other dogs were thinking about jumping in on that, which is, I think, why he went directly to the air horn with that one. So I'll show you a little bit of a video of using a muzzle. This can be helpful with dogs who don't have social skills. If you have a helper dog who does have social skills, and at Instinct it seems that those are mostly our personal dogs, be careful with your personal dog though. You don't overface them, because if you've got a dog-friendly dog, they are worth their weight in gold. But this dog is just stiff. Like he's not actively attacking. The shepherd in this video, I don't think has met a lot of dogs. And watch how this wiggly friendly helper dog really shows him there's nothing to be worried about.
Oh my god, is she adorable. She's a perfect dog. So you see how he told her too much and then she backed away? That was really nice.
I almost went to Florida and adopted that dog after I saw that video. Just the perfect dog to help that guy, because when the shepherd told her to back off, not only did she take a bunch of steps back, but she came back much smaller and wigglier, and she's just gonna make friends with him. So I'll move on to the hands-on techniques. These are by nature more dangerous, so try the hands-off techniques first. Remember, dog fights can last a long time, and you have time to try different techniques, usually. So here's the wheelbarrow. If it's not a gripping fight, and imagine the brindle dog is the instigator here, and you'll see I'll go in and I'm going to grab the very top of the legs. I'm not grabbing her abdomen. I'm not grabbing down low on the legs. So grab the abdomen, the dog's going to be upset with you. If you grab lower down on the legs, you can hurt their legs. But just the meaty part at the top where the legs connect to the body is where to grab them. Right there. See if I can get that still. That does look like I've got the abdomen, doesn't it? Aim for the back of the hind legs right there. So if it's a gripping fight, you have basically two techniques. You could try pouring water on them. Sometimes that works. But if they're gripping and they're not letting go, here's one technique you can do. You can feed the bite. So play along with me. It'll be fun. Make a fist. And then bite your fist with your other hand. Now try pulling them apart. And you can sort of feel how your biting hand almost wants to hold on tighter as you're pulling. Now try keeping the same bite strength, but push into it. And that's kind of the principle of pushing either the biter into the bitee, or the bitee into the biter, or both. Usually you would have control of the dog who's biting and push him into it. Obviously this won't work if they've got an ear or a leg or something floppy, but if they've got a grip on a large body part, you can try pushing them in and see if it releases that bite. The important thing is you've got to be standing over the dog in control position. So if you look at what Amy's doing here, you see how the dog on the left, the black dog, is the one who's gripping. You can see how if you pulled these dogs away, you could have a big tear. But she's standing over top and holding it at the collar so that when he lets go, he can't come around and bite her. Can't emphasize this too much. If you're going to a hands-on technique, even with the wheelbarrow, I'm going to try to get that dog into this control position so while the other dogs are secured, so that the dog can't whip around and get me. Let me show you the rest of that video.
I got it.
There you go. Really important to be in that position, and the other person had hold of the other dog and was stabilizing him. Sometimes they will both be attached and it gets much more complicated. Sometimes a break stick is the right tool to use, and occasionally you'll get a dog that's so strong that you need a break stick on either side of the mouth to twist, or sometimes two dogs are gripping one another and you will need two break sticks. So I would advise having two of them in each fight kit just in case. You guys probably aren't going to have dogs who need this, but better to know how to use it. So this is the type that I personally like. It's not too long. It's tapered at the end, so that even if they've got hold of a collar, you can wiggle the stick in. So it's only for gripping fights. Don't go in if they're doing slash and dash and try to Zorro your way out of that. This is just for gripping fights. And where you're going to put it is right behind the canine teeth. You know, they've got all those little teeth right behind the canines. You're going to wiggle it in about an inch, inch and a half, and then you're going to twist. And I have more strength pulling than I do pushing, but you'll see in the video I show that Pam's trying it both ways. Really, really important to stabilize the dog using control position first. So you're going to stand over the dog so that your hips are right, or your legs are right in front of their hips, but before their rib cage, and you're going to hold the scruff or the collar depending on what they're wearing. So you'll see that Pam's holding the scruff, and sometimes that'll pull the lips back from the teeth, and it's definitely not going to break. A collar could break. I've had that happen during a fight. So ASPCA folks tend to prefer the scruff grip, but it's up to you. It depends on the dog. Sometimes you're just grabbing whatever you can grab.
This is dog A7, B4, number 28.
Yeah, I'll make sure we can get this for sure.
You see why the control position is really important. That dog kept screaming until the fake dog was out of sight. The person handling the fake dog was pulling at it a little bit. If it was a real dog, you would be just stabilizing it until the grip is released, and then remove it. But I want you to remember, most dogs love other dogs. Most dogs are fun. They're playful. They're going to have a great time. I really hope you don't need to know any of the techniques in this particular video. But better to know it and not need it than need it and not know it. So bye-bye from Pebble Hill.